Hello, welcome to Updated Strategies on Developing a Business Continuity Disaster Recovery Training Program. My name is Linda Pace, and I'm a certified business continuity professional. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's get started. I wanted to give a little bit about my background. I've been in the business continuity disaster planning industry for over 15 years. I've worked in most aspects of business continuity, including being a business continuity planner. I've worked in training, I've developed policies and procedures, and most recently, I have been working on ISO 45001, occupational health and safety management systems, as well as internal auditing, and I'm recently certified in that area. In addition, I have expertise in evacuation strategies and solutions. My expertise is in international. I previously worked at the World Bank. I've worked in financial services and now in telecom and technology. So I'm looking forward to talking to you today. I want to jump in and talk about business continuity training. Training is near and dear to my heart, and I want to give you an overview of some of the strategies that you can put in place. And if you're responsible for the business continuity training program, these are components you should consider. First of all, in the business continuity environment, there are 4 key components. Hopefully, you've already attended some of the other training courses and you're familiar with the business continuity program in general. Those 4 components that I want to highlight are people, processes, technology, and vendors. And when we think of business continuity or disaster recovery, we're thinking in terms of loss of key or critical components. So just stop for a second and think about the people, processes, technology, and vendors. Any one of those 4 could disrupt your business. So that's why it's important to, 1, recognize the components, but also think of them in terms of if someone is responsible for business continuity, they must also be familiar with these 4 items. As we think about a training program, I want to consider the following. Who is the training program going to cover? Is it for employees or consultants? And how will it be delivered? Now, these are all items that I'm sure you've considered, but in today's environment, online or virtual, will it be a webinar, fact sheets, meetings, or will the training be conducted through some type of exercise? All of these are items you could consider when you're looking at your training program. Now, the information that I will share with you today, it applies whether you have an existing training program or you're brand new. As you look at your business continuity program in general, and specifically the training, the first thing you need is leadership support. That can be in the form of some type of statement or messaging to let everyone know we're launching a training program around business continuity. And then you want to think about what are the program objectives, not of the entire BC program, but for the training. What are the tools and methods? And then how will you document the results of your training? I'm stating all of these items, however, the business continuity planner may not be responsible for each item. However, I want to highlight these so that you'll be aware of the things you should be looking for. Now, when we think of program objectives for the training, there are many things you could include. Again, it depends on who the audience will be. Now, as we think about the objectives, I want you to think about your particular company. And if you're at a nonprofit, think about your organization. Think about the org chart and how the company is organized. So as you think about that, I want you to consider these items when you look at your objectives. One of the objectives of the overall program is to keep employees safe and to respond during a catastrophic event. That's one of the components of the overall program, but the training should address that because whoever is responsible for the training program should make sure that the company is able to respond. Next, a part of the training program is you critical business functions and remain profitable. These are just items you could consider as a part of your training objectives. Maybe you have an objective to ensure that all employees are trained on business continuity and disaster recovery policies and they know their role in a disaster. Again, another objective may be you want to ensure that the business continuity or disaster team are trained and also the backups are cross-trained. Many times when we're setting up a training program, we think about the person currently in the role, but we don't always consider the person who needs to be the backup. And then also, a part of having a comprehensive business continuity program is having a method for continual improvement, which means the training program should be reviewed at a minimum annually. Roles and responsibility. As I've stated, your training program really relies heavily on the roles and responsibility and who's responsible for the program. So there may be multiple individuals who are responsible for the business continuity program, and a different group may be responsible for the training. So some of the things to consider is who will be responsible. And when I say who, by job description, whose job description and whose job description covers the training program. Needed full-time or as an additional duty. Now, some of the roles that may be considered would be a business continuity analyst, a business continuity coordinator, a planner, a director of business continuity, or a VP. Also, consider what training is needed for employees and consultants. When you're considering your training program, one of the key components of business continuity is understanding hazards and being able to identify hazards. So this could be one component of your training. Depending on how long your training program will be, you could decide you're going to create multiple courses. However, one component should be identifying hazards. You may decide you want a particular section of the training to talk about hazards. Now, when we say hazards, they could fall in many areas. It could be a safety hazard, it could be weather, it could be a chemical plant, it could be an active shooter. However, think about the hazards that impact your organization. Now, as the trainer, you may not be familiar with this. So several places you can go to find out this information. Possibly you could speak to the individuals who work on the business continuity team, the risk management team, the auditors. You also can look at what hazards cover your state and your region. In today's environment, we have to think about, in addition to the hazards of weather, wildfires, and those types of things, we must think about biohazards and viruses. So all of these are items that you would document up front, and based on the hazards that impact your organization, that's how you move forward in identifying your training program. I want to speak a moment about disaster recovery. I'm not going to go into detail. However, here are a few points that you might want to consider as you're developing your training program. You want to partner very closely with the disaster recovery team. This is most likely individuals who are assigned to information technology. So here are a few items that I'd like you to note. Determine who is responsible for the disaster recovery program. As the trainer, you may not be responsible, and as the business continuity contact, you may not be responsible. However, if you're not sure, reach out to the information technology area, maybe the chief information officer, and those individuals will be able to point you in the right direction to work with as you're preparing your training program that you might need as an input to the training program. One of the items you want to ask for is the test plan, the disaster recovery test plan. Typically, that's done annually, and sometimes it's done for a 2-year period. Request the current year and the previous year test plan. That is helpful because that will give you information as to what is already in place. Also, request a copy of the current disaster plan. In addition, you should include information technology or the disaster recovery team and team members in the training program, including meetings you might have with the business process, and if you have any type of exercise, I would include the disaster recovery team. This way, both the business continuity and the disaster recovery, those two processes remain aligned and in communication. I want to share a few important terms. I won't go into detail. However, these are 3 terms that will be very important and they should be covered in your training. Although each person participating in your training may not have an in-depth business continuity or disaster recovery role, it's important that they understand these 3 items. The recovery time objective is a tool and a process helps the company or the organization to determine how long a particular process can be unavailable before the company experiences financial or operational loss. For example, if you are a bank, how long could the ATM be unavailable before you have a significant impact? And if the time frame is 24 hours, then that would be an example of this must be operational within 24 hours. And this information is gathered through the business impact analysis. Again, these are based on time frames, financial impact, and loss. I want to just make sure you know these are items you should look for in your business continuity plan, and you should also talk to the process owners about these items. The other item is crisis communication. I want to highlight that because there's internal and external communication. And when looking at communication, something that's important, and you might want to note this in your training, is who is responsible for internal communication, who's responsible for external, and who is the media contact. This is very important, especially in the age of social media and all that happens when an incident occurs. You want to be sure everyone in your organization, they understand who is responsible for. You may have an external entity that is responsible who handles external communication as well. You address recovery time objective, RTO, crisis communication. Awareness. Every training program must have awareness. Some organizations highlight awareness during a particular month. My preference is to plan awareness at least twice annually, depending on your organization. In some places, it's a part of a communication that's sent out. So my recommendation business continuity awareness training program. So there should be a schedule and then determine who's responsible for the awareness. For example, you could set up an awareness day, or in conjunction with the business continuity team, set up awareness. And that could be, you would have the business continuity coordinators or the planners. They would be people who would get visibility at that time. And then what are the topics that would be covered in the awareness, such as whether you're focusing on weather or hurricanes, wildfires, and in today's climate, health emergencies or health and safety. For example, you may have an awareness communication about working remote and safety hazards that could happen when you're working remote. Or you could have an awareness on, this is our business continuity program, and we want to make sure you know who the contacts are. So it's up to the business continuity team to give you input into the training program, but it's important to note it must be scheduled. If you have an incident and you send out a communication, that is fine. However, you should schedule a minimum of 2 communications, and it can be in the form of fact sheets, a message to all employees, a overview to consultants. However, awareness is a key component. And I only listed here a few examples. However, depending on your organization, you would determine what are the right topics to cover. Exercises and drills. Again, this is a key component of your training program, because in many cases, you want each employee or consultant to be involved in an exercise or a drill. We'll start with a drill. In many cases, need to be an evacuation a certain time during the year. You want individuals to be aware of the process. Now, as we think about exercises, there are different types. Again, whoever is responsible for the business continuity program should be able to attend training so that they know what the requirements are. An example of a requirement for a business continuity professional, whether it's a business continuity planner, coordinator, or someone who's a manager who has oversight for business continuity, there should be a schedule. This schedule, again, is an annual schedule. And if you already have that in place, you can take a look at it and it will give you input into your training. There should be a schedule. There should also be a test plan. And that test plan talks about the types of exercises that will happen. One of the more popular types is what we call a structured walkthrough. Sometimes it's called a tabletop exercise. And that is an exercise where key individuals and stakeholders actually sit in a room typically. Now, in today's environment, it can also be done virtually. Those individuals would sit together or collaborate remotely, and they would look at the entire process or a particular process. So, for example, let's say payroll is the process, and the payroll team wants to be sure they know what to do. And they walk through what would happen in the event of a health emergency. And they document the results and they invite the team to practice, but they're doing it in a safe setting, whether it's remote or through a conference room. That's how they're doing a structured walkthrough. And that is an inexpensive way to test and exercise your program. And this is something that's important if you have a training program, that someone on the team can lead the structured walkthrough. The other type of test that you may hear about, and it's important to understand, is a technology test. Maybe a server will be tested, the shared drive access could be tested. Another test could be, do individuals know how to log in from a remote location? That's a type of test. Again, it could be scenario based. there's a hurricane and we want to talk about what happens if the building is unavailable. Another type could be the scenario that the vendor is unavailable. Maybe you have 10 vendors, but only 3 are critical. So all of these are items that would be considered in the training program because most individuals in the company would have a part in one of these areas. Again, the exercise could be departmental, it could be company-wide or by process. As I stated earlier, it could be the payroll department, it could be the facilities team, it could be a sales team. They could host it as a part of their departmental meeting, or it could be led by the business continuity team. So it's important to educate and train on what this means. Okay, I'm going to talk about a few more items here, and I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about health emergency planning. So let's talk about that. I'm going to give you your next steps now. So this is your homework, and I'm going to go through a few other items. One is I would like each of you, if you're either developing a training program or you're already doing business continuity and you don't have a training program, I would recommend you attend at least one webinar. Now, there are numerous organizations that offer webinars, but I think that would be a good place to start. Attend one webinar. So if you have a team of business continuity professionals, that would be a starting point. In today's environment, planning, the other thing I would recommend you do, online course, but in addition to that, go out and visit several websites. One is your state and local health department. Visit their website because that's going to give you insight that prior to now would not have even been available. So as you're looking at how to get your training program kind of up and running, I want you to go to the webinar, go out to the website for your state and your county, if that's applicable to you, take one online course. During this time where many people are remote, this is a great time to take an online course. Additionally, I want you to look at what could be the objectives of your training program. So I want to talk about that for a minute. Again, one objective could be ensure all employees are trained on the BCDR policy. That could be an objective. Not necessarily they have to go to a 1-hour course. This continuity analyst, the planner, or continuity. However, someone who is an employee, it may make sense for them to watch a 15-minute video. They may be able to receive a fact sheet or some type of flyer, or information can be posted to the company's intranet site, and those individuals in the company could receive an email saying, please go out and review these documents. Those are ways that you can meet the objective to train everyone in your organization. So I would like to recommend that as an example of an objective. Another objective might be to update your training program to cover health emergencies and pandemic planning. Now, I think that would be very appropriate given the season we're in. For example, if you are in the business continuity arena and that is your back objectives that you should have as an individual is competence. And one of the ways to increase your competence in the industry is to go to industry events, conferences, online training, free webinars, as we've talked about, but also go out to external sources. There are numerous organizations. In addition to Continuity Insights, there are other organizations you can check with FEMA, go out to the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. You should go out to their site and look at the information. FEMA has also free classes that you can take. So these are things you should do as a part of the training program. This way, even in the environment where there's a limited budget, there's places and opportunities. Um, Another objective as a part of the training program for the business continuity team should be those individuals should be actively involved in various organizations. So whether that's local, regional, or national, they should, and international, of course, they should be a part of those types of organizations. And the reason is because these organizations are on a regular basis sending out information to help you become more knowledgeable. And in this environment, as we can see, if you watch the news, these things change every day. So it may be 4 months out of the year, the business continuity person is doing updates to the plan. They're updating the training. But when the time comes to implement the business continuity plan, there's not much time for training. So I would encourage you to take advantage of training that's available. And also, the other objective I would offer is to update your crisis communication plan. That is another objective. Now, these are not necessarily areas that are covered in your BC plan. You may have a specific communications team that is responsible for that. Again, you want to know who is the media contact, who is authorized to speak to the media, and make sure employees know who that person is so that you don't have the situation where individuals are speaking to the media and that is not appropriate for your organization. One other skill I want to highlight as we think about your training program, once you determine who the people are who will be responsible for business continuity and responsible for the training program, make sure that team, the business continuity team, is trained and knowledgeable in how to interview to get information, how to conduct surveys, because a lot of the business continuity work has to do with information gathering. So oftentimes, individuals who have had a background in risk management, privacy, SOX, and those arenas, in addition to disaster planning and those types of roles, they're very likely to excel in these particular roles. So those would be the types of people who would definitely want to consider when you're looking for individuals to help you with your training program. And also maintain a list of subject matter experts who can help you out in the event that you don't have a trainer on hand. You at least will have the appropriate data. And one of the other items I want to make sure I cover is how do you deal with the return on your investment? Because as you're going through this training program, and of course I'm putting up objectives of things you can do, someone is being paid to do this work, but also you want to be able to document how you're saving your organization money. For example, if there are 5 people working on business continuity and you save the company from a certain amount of incidents because of training, or there were no lost days, that is an example of there's a return on the investment and you want to document that. The other thing is, even in the environment of the COVID-19, there are some companies, as you know, that are closed. Those companies, maybe they had a good business continuity plan, maybe they didn't. However, if you're in the role and you were able to save your company money by the training program and your business continuity program, I think that would be something that you want to document. And it's important also to use the tools that are available to collect information, such as surveys. And if you need information about how to set up your program and the questions people might have, certainly use tools such as SurveyMonkey to gather data to find out what people want to learn about. And again, I want you to, as a extra item, in addition to the things I just shared, here in the wrap up, as a part of the health emergencies and pandemic planning, become knowledgeable of this. And as I've mentioned, the time is right to do it. You can go out and look at all the information that's available. And things to consider, especially in 2020, if you did not already have this in place in your business continuity plan, now is the perfect time to add this as an item. Training for health crisis, health emergencies, pandemic planning, COVID-19 specifically, and also how these items impact remote work. Um, Work with your human resources department to find out if your remote work strategies have been updated, and that is something that can be added to your training program. And then finally, think about re-entry considerations, because at some point, even though as I am presenting, many of us are in a remote work environment, at some point there may be some re-entry on some level into a actual physical workplace. So these are things that you want to educate individuals on at this time. So as I wrap up, I have provided you with my contact information, and please take advantage of the homework that I have provided as far as items that you can take back to your organization. I am really grateful for Continuity Insights for this opportunity, and I really thank you for your time. Again, my name is Linda Pace, and I'm a certified business continuity professional, and I'm currently located in South Florida. My email is here. You can reach me at pacelinda@yahoo.com, lindapace98@gmail.com, and you can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Disaster Plan 101. And I look forward to seeing you when we're all no longer remote, and hopefully at an upcoming event. Thank you so much.